Welcome back to Kings of Columbus. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. I feel like we got to talk about tots, right? Or something. This is there's not a Rooster show going up on this Monday on the podcast channel. And so we're doing 2 Kings of Columbus episodes this week. So I would be willing to eat wings during the show if it would help people who might be missing Austin and Bobby and the gang.
Yeah, we could do that. I don't know. I wish I knew what the appetizer of the week was. I don't know off the top of my head.
That was your job. What do you?
I know. I want to
make a call.
I don't even want to guess. I think last week it was mushrooms, and maybe I don't know. Maybe this week it's like mac and cheese bites or something. Right. We can pretend. The good thing is we can make it whatever we want it to be. Use your imagination.
Yeah. We'll get into that. That can be part of what you eating. What is your favorite imaginary appetizer? All right, we are going to talk about Chip Kelly because you and I have not talked about Chip Kelly since he was officially hired as Ohio State's new offensive coordinator. I have some stats. We want to talk about his history, what he's done at Oregon and UCLA in the past, some of the crazy things that I've written about Chip Kelly at times over the years, because this is a guy who did cross paths with Ohio State a little bit. And there's an alternate timeline, I think, for Chip Kelly, which I love alternate timelines. And so I do want to sort of get into that a little bit and what it means at Ohio State. He's 60. What Ohio State is getting 60-year-old Chip Kelly here right now as the offensive coordinator. But let's talk about first what Chip Kelly has done in his college football career. I did not look up the UNH stats. I did not call Ricky Santos, but I think people know this. He was like a New Hampshire genius. And This was one of those things. Like Lincoln Riley was at East Carolina when he got hired at Oklahoma, right? Like these guys who were percolating. And Mike Bellotti, who maybe once upon a time could have been the Ohio State head coach, was at Oregon, was like, I don't know, man. I think we need to play better offense. What about this New Hampshire guy? And went and got Chip Kelly. And Chip Kelly went and was Oregon's offensive coordinator for 2 years as like this known only in New England genius. And then Mike Bellotti was like, I'm good. And Chip Kelly took over as the head coach. And that is how we got Chip Kelly on the national college football scene. People know the Manchester. Do we have to do the Manchester? Now here's the thing. I think as I looked this up, the 6 most famous people to ever come from Manchester, New Hampshire are, in no particular order, Seth Meyers, Sarah Silverman, Adam Sandler, Chip Kelly, Ryan Day, and my dad. So that's what I mean, people talk about the New Hampshire Mafia. They throw Dan Mullen in there. There's a couple other coaches who've been from there. That's my New Hampshire Mafia. Now my dad has passed away, but sometimes I just like to think about like Chip Kelly and Adam Sandler and my dad, like walking down the street in Manchester. Like you gotta, like some kind of like version. Cause I think it's sort of in between. Like I think people from Vermont are nicer. And then it's like Boston's Boston. Right. And I think New Hampshire's kind of like in between, which is like, you think you're better than me? You want some syrup? Like there's a little bit of like, I might fight you or I might offer you to help you out for no particular reason. But people know this, that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day went to the same high school. Chip Kelly was the offensive coordinator at New Hampshire, recruited Ryan Day out of that high school to come be his quarterback. They all know this. Everybody watching this knows that, right?
I believe everyone watching this knows that. I want to know, was there any crossover between your dad and the rest of the New Hampshire social elite?
So there's 2 things. There's 2 things that have been talked about over the years. One is this might be lore. But it's Lesmerises family lore. It is believed that possibly my grandmother, my father's mother, may have been a lunch lady at Adam Sandler's high school. So when like Adam Sandler has that lunch lady song, we think sometimes perhaps it's based on my grandmother. So like that's part of it. If Adam Sandler writes a song about your grandma, that's something. And then the other thing is my cousin, I still have like my whole side of the family lives in New Hampshire. My cousin worked at a newspaper with Ryan Day's stepdad, and Ryan Day and my cousin were in the same fantasy football league one time because it was like the newspaper fantasy football league, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, my stepson's gonna like help run the team with me," and it was like 12-year-old Ryan Day. So like that's
just drafted all Patriots players.
I'm drafting Steve Grogan in the first round. You got a problem with that? You want some syrup? So yeah, so those are the two things. So again, so we don't have to cover that. We can cut that part out. Mike, just cut the New Hampshire part out later. Everybody knows it. We all know it.
Yeah, we all
know it.
I know it. Yeah.
Chip Kelly goes to Oregon, and he's really good. And here's where, in his career in college football, here's where Chip Kelly's offenses have ranked by the FEI offensive rating, which is the one I always use. It's a statistic, whatever. It's not just yards per game. Okay, at Oregon, the 2 years as offensive coordinator, 9th in the country, 14th in the country. Then he becomes the head coach. Number 15, number 5, number 4, number 4. So his last 3 years as the head coach, he's got a top 5 offense. Then he goes to UCLA in 2018. He's 58th. They're 58th in the nation, and then 59th. So it's not great, but he's not taking over the world's greatest situation at UCLA. Mm-hmm. Builds it up. 2020, they're 29th, then 13th and 11th. And then this last year, they fell off a cliff. They were 61st. The thing that's a little crazy is that he basically had one quarterback his 6 years at UCLA, which was Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who then got drafted by the Browns and is a really good quarterback. And so as Dorian Thompson-Robinson built up and got more experience and was a dual threat and could run an offense, they got really good. And then they played a combination of a true freshman and a former backup this year. And the offense was bad, but the defense was really good. But the bottom line is this guy knows how to run a college offense, correct?
He certainly does know how to run a college offense. I think they actually they kind of played 3 last year, didn't they? Because Colin Schlee was also in that mix at quarterback.
And Purdue Ethan Garber's the former backup, and then Dante Moore, the 5-star freshman who was at Oregon, flipped to UCLA, played, now was leaving UCLA and is going back to Oregon and is from Detroit. And it was a little bit messy, right? Compared to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who Chip Kelly had 1,000% faith in.
Yes, and I think it's worth mentioning for anyone who's going to just the most recent year they can find of Chip Kelly's offenses and looking at some of the numbers, which aren't frankly all that good, and thinking to themselves this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I think the body of work of Dorian Thompson-Robinson over his, I think it was 5 years with Chip Kelly, or maybe it was a 4 or 5. It was 3.
His freshman year was started split half the games, and then 4 full years as the starter after that.
Yeah, he split time with Wilton Spate, who I forgot was at UCLA.
Yeah. Michigan transfer, Wilton Spate. So that's again. But Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 4.5 years as the starter.
And building the entire time to the point where their 2022 offense was pretty good. It was among the best in the country, and not just running the ball, efficiency wise, throwing the ball, they were fine. You said they were 11th in the FEI. You said it was a pretty freaking good offense they had there by the time that Dorian Thompson-Robinson had spent a lot of time with Chip Kelly. They had Zach Charbonnet as a running back in the backfield. They had some
another
pieces
Michigan
there.
Transfer. Stealing from Michigan.
Another Michigan transfer, yeah. And actually, I think Chip Kelly's offensive coordinator last year was Tim Drevno, who's a former Michigan offensive coordinator. So I don't really, maybe we did ask Chip Kelly what's going on with him in Michigan the first
Harbaugh
time.
Jr. Yeah. You compared me to Jim Harbaugh? Want some syrup? So good. I think it's worth resetting that this guy has run and there's not, I don't think, and again, the NFL stuff, it's that's Ryan Day, who Chip Kelly's his mentor, then was working for Chip Kelly in the NFL, both with the Philadelphia Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers. We'll get into a little bit more of that NFL stuff in a moment. But that idea, can Chip Kelly run a successful college offense? I think one of the important things here too is the guys that he had here. Will Howard is exactly the kind of quarterback he's had, sort of. So we had Dennis Dixon in year 1, and I think Dennis Dixon, that was the year Dennis Dixon was in the Heisman race and tore his ACL in November, right? It was a really unfortunate thing. But what was Dennis? I mean, Dennis Dixon wasn't Tom Brady, right? So no. And then Jeremiah Masoli, that's who the quarterback when Ohio State played Oregon in the Rose Bowl, right? That was Jeremiah Masoli. But again, And then Darren Thomas, who was fine. And then he got 1 year of Marcus Mariota. Like he recruited him, got him there, and had 1 year of him before he left for the NFL. Mark Helfrich took over, and then Mariota wins the Heisman and leads into the national title game and all that stuff. So like he's not NFL quarterbacks. And then as we said at UCLA, it's Wilton Speight and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, then 4 years of DTR, and then 3 guys this year. I think part of that point is it's not player based. Like they didn't have, when he had top 10 offenses, it wasn't because they had top 10 offensive talent.
Right.
Which to me is like, oh, so then he must have been doing something else pretty good.
Yeah, like they had some nice players for sure. And there
Michael
was
James at running back, right? That was one of them.
Yeah, and even at like UCLA, like Joshua Kelly was a pretty good college running back, and then is like a backup running back in the NFL. Zach Charbonnet's a good player. Like Jake Bobo, I think was a pretty good receiver they had the last couple of years at UCLA. They've had some good tight ends there, and there is a correlation, I think, between like an uptick in talent and how good they are, but
Yes.
it is not an offense that has at least required elite talent to be elite, which makes the idea of him now taking over a roster that has elite offensive talent pretty interesting.
And I do, and Will Howard. And the next thing we're going to talk about is Chip Kelly in the run game. To me, sort of fits in with the Jeremiah Masoli, Dorian Thompson-Robinson kind of quarterback that isn't necessarily a CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams level of passer, but is a good passer, but can do multiple other things. Like, again, the point to me is Chip Kelly has had high levels of success, I think, with quarterbacks who are comparable to Will Howard in style and ability. Yes?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the run game. My dream is dead. So I'm very curious to see where you are on this, because Dougie, born of New Hampshire, like this, I just want Ohio State to throw it 85% of the time. And that's not going to happen, I don't think. So
yeah,
when I look at, I went back into this. So like this past year, the Washington Huskies, who I use as a reference point a lot. Hey, Michael Penix. Hey, Romo Dunze. Chuck it around. Jalen McMillan. Jalen Polk. 58.3% of the time they threw it, 41.7% of the time they ran it. Okay. So they're like 58-42. Washington throwing it. Michigan, on the other end of the scale, ran it 61% of the time. So Michigan is 61% run, 39% pass.
Mm-hmm.
Washington is 42% run, 58% pass. Ohio State this past year was 52% run, which was like, oh, more than half run, but like that's actually kind of on the lower end of, right? So it's almost 50-50 split. Chip Kelly runs the ball, Landis. Chip Kelly is not going to be in favor of Ohio State heading toward a 60% pass, 40% run offense. Based on his history, he's going to be in favor of a 60% run offense. Chip Kelly in his career, what percent of the time did they run it? Starting at Oregon, 60% run, 61% run, 62% run, 61% run, 62% run, 65% run with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. Now, then you get to UCLA, you got Wilton Speight and some young guys, 53% run, 54% run, 61% run, 60% run, 55% run, 56% run. When it's going good, Chip Kelly wants to be 60-40 run. Ryan Day, his time at Ohio State, first as offensive coordinator, 57% run, 50% run with Dwayne Haskins. They're basically 50-50. 62% run Justin Fields, 61% run Justin Fields, 46% run in the first year of CJ Stroud. Oh, yeah, give me some of that. Sweet, sweet music. It's because their run game, like they didn't have any running backs. They were all sitting on the bench with injuries.
Yeah.
53% run in year 2 of CJ Stroud, and then 52% run last year. So, like with Justin Fields, Ryan Day was in that 60% run Chip Kelly range. It's just numbers. Am I going to be sad? Do you want to beat some sense into me that my dream was always stupid and not where Ohio State should be? What do you think of Chip Kelly's desire to run in the past and what it will translate, how it will translate, what it will mean at Ohio State?
I don't think your idea was stupid.
Thank you.
I also don't think you want to watch an offense with Will Howard, a quarterback that's throwing the ball 65% of the time. Like I don't know that that's doing. I don't know if that's doing anybody a service there when you do that. I think much of it is personnel. Like clearly, Ryan Days is personnel driven, right? He had a running quarterback, really good running back with J.K. Dobbins, and he ran the ball a lot in 2019. In 2020, they kind of got to that point with Trey Sermon by the end of the year. And then when they had CJ, they threw it more. I wonder if Chip Kelly had this kind of receiver talent on hand, what his percentage might be. But he didn't have that, so he ran the ball more. So I don't know that he's going to push Ohio State to 60% run just because that's what he wants to do. But I do think that this particular roster might lend itself to that this season with the 1 year you're going to have at Will Howard, with the 1 year you're going to have of Quinshad Judkins and Travion Henderson in the backfield. I think they will probably run the ball significantly more than they did last year. I think it will be something closer to like what we saw, and just in terms of percentage breakdown in 2019 when Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins were kind of running the show on offense. But I don't know that necessarily signifies an overall sort of like long-reaching philosophical shift for Ohio State. But I do think it'll feel a little different this year because of Chip Kelly's background and also the personnel they're going to have.
It feels like the personnel that they acquired pre-Chip Kelly fits the incoming version of Chip Kelly very well. And I'm imagining a scenario where everything you just said, a quarterback who can run, two great running backs, Chip Kelly's run game inclinations. And again, if Ryan Day is not going to be in the room quite as much, and Chip Kelly's like, did he go? Did he leave? Is he gone? Okay. We're running it on 3rd and 7, right? Like that. Don't tell him. That will fit this year. And then they have a year for Ryan Day to point to Julian Sayin and Aaron Noland in practice and be like, you want to run it 60% of the time with them? What is wrong with you? And get ready for maybe, I don't know, 54% run when they get to that next quarterback. But this is no plan. Are plans dead? Are plans dead in college football, or are plans, do they still kind of exist?
I think they kind of exist, but I would caution you planning out more than like 2 years in advance.
So the plan, whose plan would this have been? A year ago? You say a year ago. Yes, we're going to get Ohio State in 2024. What are you going to do? What do you got? What's the plan? Kansas State quarterback, boom. Ole Miss running back, boom. UCLA head coach, the offensive coordinator, boom, shakalaka. Whoa! What? But that's what happened, and it actually kind of fits together.
I think it fits really well. It's part of the reason why, like I said this on the daily that Austin and I did on Monday morning. Like, I kind of like the fit Chip Kelly to this group of personnel more than I like Bill O'Brien to this group of personnel. Only because, like, I think Bill O'Brien's really good. We did that show about, when he got hired, that like this is a good thing for Ohio State. But one knock on Bill O'Brien is like that, like he doesn't run the ball maybe when he should. At least that's a knock that Alabama fans had on him. And I could have seen a scenario where that would have been frustrating had it played out that way with the roster that Ryan Day has built this season. And I don't think it'll be an issue with Chip Kelly, which I think is a good thing.
So, and did we also did the also in between there? It's like also, boom shakalaka, 3-week hire, former Bama offensive coordinator, get the Bama number 1 ranked quarterback because he knows that guy. Then that guy leaves, but the kid is here. Oh, what a wrinkle that was.
They're going to put Bill O'Brien up in the Ring of Honor thing up in the shoe when Julian Sayin wins a national championship in like 3 years.
What a wrinkle. So What percent do you agree with what my thing has been all along, which is I almost don't care who the person is. I'm just 1000% on board with Ryan Day hiring a veteran offensive play caller who has called plays before and that he can trust. And that's almost the whole thing to me. I can cover my eyes and cover my ears, and I don't care who that person is. How much are you there, or how much do you actually, care about the person?
I'm probably like 70% of the way there, but I care about the person too. Like,
Oh, look at
you
you.
know,
You care about
th-
people. That's one of the differences between us. You care about
yeah,
people.
yeah.
I just care about myself.
I mean, I agree with what Ryan Day said several times when we talked to him last Wednesday. Like, you can't just decide like I'm going to do this and then throw anybody in there, right?
Yes.
I think the person has to matter, but I'm with you that the idea and decision matters more than the person.
So let me ask you this question then, because this is one of these things that, like, if we didn't work together, I'd be texting you to get
Mhm.
your answer to this. Ohio State's offenses by that FEI rating since Ryan Day got here as offensive coordinator, those 2 years, third and fourth in the nation. Then as the head coach, third, fourth, first, third. His first 6 years, first once, third 3 times, fourth twice.
Mhm.
Last year, 13th. Do you think this Ohio State offense, what Ryan Day wants to do, what Ryan Day's inclinations are, what his ideas are, his tendencies, the things he believes in, the magnets he has on the wall, could they actually use an injection, an infusion of something that is it more than Ryan Day just taking, because to me, it's like removing the burden to allow him to be a better coach everywhere else, right? And
Mhm.
hoping primarily that you can bring in somebody who can kind of keep the offense humming. But do you think the offense could actually use something when we say, hey, they didn't have a top 10 offense this year? Their offense was 13th. Or is that really just offensive line play, quarterback play, get that sorted out and you're good to go?
Yeah, I think it's more of the latter there than it is like needing any kind of like revamp or wrapping of what they've done the past couple of years. I think there are ways to enhance it. And what's interesting about this to me is like the one thing I wondered as it seemed like we were getting to the point where Ryan Day was going to make this decision was like how palatable it would be for any offensive coordinator candidate to have Ryan Day say to them, like, our offense isn't broken. Here's the offense. Call it from this. You want to add a thing here, add a thing there. That's fine. But here's the offense. And like clearly Bill O'Brien was on board with that, or else I don't think he would have taken the job. But now you're in a situation with Chip Kelly where like the playbook that Ryan Day is handing Chip Kelly is going to look like Chip Kelly's playbook. Like Chip Kelly has the same magnets as Ryan Day, right? So I think that eases the transition, but then what you have is like sort of like a baseline understanding of what you want to be, how you've gone about your business that I don't think Chip Kelly would even want to change if he was empowered to do so, because he does a lot of the same things already. But over the last couple of years, he's done I think, more interesting, creative things running the ball at UCLA that I think can help take Ohio State's offense to the next level. That to me is where they've come up short a little bit, is um, like run game diversity, creativity, situational awareness too, of like when to run the ball, when to throw the ball. I don't know that Ryan Day's always kind of struck the correct chord there. But overall, like, no, I don't think the offense needed to be kind of stripped down and rebuilt. I think the foundation is very solid, clearly. And now you have somebody like Chip Kelly coming in who's like adding ideas onto that are ideas that were developed from the same base level, if that makes sense, like from the same core concepts that Ryan Day has used during his entire tenure at Ohio State. So that to me is only a positive. But I don't think it's a indictment necessarily on what Ryan Day has done offensively. Clearly, it's been very good, but there's always ways to get like a little bit better, which is what Ryan Day was talking about, like that 1 or 2% that Ohio State's looking for. I think Chip Kelly is certainly capable of helping them find that.
And people know that Ryan Day could have gone to Oregon. People know that, like that, like
That was, yeah. So that was like he had the job offer. He was like at a family party, right? And
yeah.
then that was That was when Ryan Day was at Boston College, like the second time. Is that right?
That might be right. I don't know. I can't remember if it was when Chip went as the OC or for when Chip became the head coach. But Chip was like really, to me, I've always taken it as like all the things that Mark Helfrich did then, which was be the offensive coordinator and then take over as the head coach when Chip Kelly left. That could have been Ryan Day, except Ryan Day didn't want to move to the West Coast.
Yeah, I remember asking Ryan. I don't know. I'm not the only one who's asked him that. Like, hey, like, did you watch the 2014 national championship and think to yourself that could have been me? He's like, yeah, because it could have been, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if people know that as much as they know like the New Hampshire tie stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just how that's how connected these guys are. So the run game part of it, the thing, what's the thing that you always, I think you've been like a burr in the saddle for Ryan Day about pistol run game? What's the thing that you're always like, well, I mean, you say you're going to do it, then you never do. Like it's like when you do this formation, you run it 94% of the time. And I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but you do. Is that it? Is that the thing?
It's when they're under center and when they're in the under center or in the pistol, they run the ball probably 90% of the time. And there have been games, the times that I have asked that question have been after games where they've done it like 100% of the time. The Penn State game at Penn State 2 years ago, I remember was one, and I can't remember. I asked a very similar line of questioning the year before that. I can't remember what game that was after, but yeah, it's like predictability when you're under center or when you're in the pistol. It's like you're running a ball, and more often than not, you're running stretch or wide zone into the short side of the field, which, is Ryan Day's favorite run play.
Yeah. So that's good. So now the burr in his saddle won't just be some guy from Philly who's got a big attitude.
Yeah.
It'll be his mentor. That's good.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's how Chip Kelly fits in here. I want to dive backwards a little bit into sort of the alternate timeline of maybe Chip Kelly's career, and we'll do that next on Kings of Columbus. All right, so I want to dive backwards a little bit into Chip Kelly. By the way, UCLA just replaced him as we record this on Monday morning. Deshaun Foster, former UCLA running back. Is that right? I think he's a running back. He's a UCLA alum and he got the job, which is great for UCLA. I think I mean, like this thing from the UCLA perspective, our head coach who maybe in the last year seemed like kind of checked out, and who, like Bill Plaschke, the LA Times columnist, like ripped Chip Kelly on the way out the door.
Oh, that doesn't sound like Bill Plaschke.
Yeah. It's like, I told you they should have fired him. They should have fired him. And it was like, there was like firing him speculation, and then they kept him and whatever. Like, I do like UCLA fans have every right to be like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
Like, you're leaving to be an OC for your friend. We're going to the Big Ten. We're UCLA. This is a kick in the gut a little bit. And I don't know that there's a defense if Chip Kelly needs to be defended, but UCLA should be mad. And sometimes when you're mad, then it's like, well, let's turn to somebody who like really wants to be the UCLA head coach and who we love. And Deshaun Foster is absolutely qualified, but also you get the bonus of like, hey, he's our guy. He's probably not going to leave to be Ohio State's offensive coordinator.
Yeah. I never got the impression that Chip Kelly was going to do everything in his power to make sure that UCLA became like a relevant program nationally. I think he just kind of wanted to call plays and draw stuff up and hope that being in Westwood was enough to get good players to go there.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense to go this route for UCLA.
Okay. Is this guy a genius? Do you think he's an offensive genius?
Yeah, I do. I think, I think, he's in like the top 5 probably of like most influential offensive minds in college football, like in the last 50 years, I would say.
Yeah, that's good, because I was going to ask you for your list. But like, yeah, that's like really important, I think, here. And I'll just say, like, covering. So I always get this a little confused. So the Ohio State, so I guess it was year 1. Yeah, it was year 1 of him as the head coach at Oregon in 2009. Ohio State beats Oregon in the Rose Bowl. and covering that from an Ohio State perspective, the whole thing was, wow, we get to see this alien up close. What is this? Is it going to work? Certainly the takeaway after Cam Hayward and that Ohio State defense kind of had its way with Oregon was like, okay, this is a little smoke and mirrors. And then Terrell Pryor had the pass to Jake Ballard and all those things. But going out there, it felt like something new had been discovered. I'll always remember that John Gruden was doing the game like on radio or whatever. So he was around that week at the Rose Bowl, and a bunch of us like got him in a hallway. They were doing the player interviews in like in ballrooms at one of the hotels. And we got John Gruden out in the hallway, and he totally was like playing into like, what is this? This is aliens. This is a quote from a story I wrote back then. It's a totally different. I'm not going to do the Gruden thing. It's a totally different way of attacking, a totally different philosophical offensive style than I've ever seen. The strange thing about Oregon is they don't huddle. I don't know where the pitch guy's coming from. One time it came from under the AstroTurf and showed up. One time there's an unbalanced line, and you don't know what uniform they're going to wear either. I'm enamored with it. It was. I thought that started off okay, and by the end it was just like Donnie Brasco.
Yeah,
but like that's John Gruden, who was like, I don't know what this is, right? And like, how often do you see that, right? Like, how often does something come along? I'm talking about the 2-quarterback offense a couple of weeks ago. How long does something come along, but with tempo, with motion, with sort of like an advanced version of like a high-flying up-tempo, throw the ball at 40% of the time. It was like the triple option, like 9.0 kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it absolutely was new. And my gosh, how often in life do any of us get to do anything new?
Yeah, I mean, it was new. It was like an evolution of something that had been going on. I wrote like a very little bit about it when I wrote a story a couple of years ago about the Northwestern offense with Randy Walker and Kevin Wilson, the year that they beat Michigan and like kind of like revolutionized what they were doing there. Like a lot of that was based off what they had learned from like Rich Rod.
Yep.
But like part of that story, because Ryan Day was the head coach at the time I wrote that story, I asked Ryan Day about it, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like Chip went to talk with Rich Rod. He went to Northwestern, and then like I became the guinea pig for like the meshing of all these ideas when he was the quarterback at New Hampshire. So like, it's not to say that like Chip hasn't had original ideas, because he certainly has, but like everything else, like it's built on top of the ideas that people had previously set. But even in that way, you sort of become part of that kind of evolution yourself, I guess. Like, so I think there have been, I don't know, a handful, maybe a little more of coaches throughout the years where like you go and face them and you think to yourself, like, I've never seen this before. But Chip Kelly is definitely one. Like Rich Rod is one. Hal Mummy's probably one. Urban Meyer, like taking all of that and then running it with really good players. That's probably another step in that too. So yeah, there are quite a few, but Chip's part of that group.
Joe Tiller, I think, was part of that, right? With what he did. And so the fascinating part of this, and I just think we need to ground people in that of like, who are you getting here? Did you see, you did see Oppenheimer or no?
Yeah.
Right. Can we spoil Oppenheimer stuff now?
I think we can.
Wild, right?
Yeah.
So is it kind of like Oppenheimer is like Ryan Day is like Oppenheimer walking to the pond, and then like Chip Kelly is Einstein hanging out at the pond?
Yeah, I think that works for me.
Yeah. We could ask them to recreate. We recreate that at Mirror Lake. We'll refill Mirror Lake.
That'd be so funny.
Chip, we got an Einstein wig for you. It's a compliment. It's a compliment, though. It's a compliment.
Chip Kelly's hat blows off when he goes chasing it. Yeah, it'd be great.
We're comparing Ohio State's pursuit of the 2024 national title to building the most destructive weapon in the history of humankind. You good?
Yep. Works for me.
Just a bit. So like, but we need to ground, because there might be younger people listening who weren't around in like 2007 and 8 and 9 when all this stuff was happening. That's who this guy was, right? Mm-hmm. So like I think we need to establish that, and then we can get into the alternate timeline, which And I would say this to his face in sort of a laughing manner, but he destroyed his own career. Did he not? Like when he was coming out of Oregon,
Yeah.
4 years as the head coach there, he could have written his own ticket for anything. He could have stayed at Oregon and turned Oregon into an absolute powerhouse. He had Phil Knight. He was going to start to get to the point where he was going to recruit players who wanted to be part of that offense. Marcus Mariota was the beginning of that. And he only got to coach him for 1 year as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
And then he left. And he and like the fumes of that, which Mark Helfrich, as it turned out, because that's a comparison that a lot of people have made, like, hey, Ryan Day off Urban Meyer, Mark Helfrich off Chip Kelly. He ran on Chip Kelly fumes, and then when the fumes ran out, there was nothing there. And then he got fired. But the fumes of that, when Mariota Heisman got him to a national title game, fumes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What Chip Kelly, had he stayed, could have done there, I think is it limitless? Do you think Chip Kelly could have won 2 national titles and had 3 Heisman winners in the last decade if he had stayed there, as we think about this alternate timeline?
Yeah, I think he could have. I mean, think about what Oregon is now, or what Oregon is perceived to be, at least, and what people think it's going to be with Dan Lanning there. And maybe there's an argument to be made that, like, Chip Kelly was just never going to be like the dogged roster builder that you need to be what you just said. And maybe that's probably a fair criticism. But in terms of like ideas, resources, clout, yeah, it's hard for me to envision a scenario where he wouldn't have won a national championship there and had a couple of Heisman Trophy winners with the way they were cooking on offense when he left.
Okay, so that's on the table. He also could have taken a Godfather offer from Texas or Florida or Georgia or LSU or something, and could have gone into a place and said, okay, taking the Kalen DeBoer route and said, okay, I'm from New Hampshire. I coached at Oregon, but I know ball and I know high flying offenses. Like, I'm going to go there to where the best players are and do that. That would have been an option too, right?
For sure. Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I can't remember which jobs were open, like, around the time that he left after the 2012 season, like what that could have theoretically timed up with. But even, like, I don't know, in a world where Urban Meyer didn't fall out of the sky for Ohio State, like, Chip Kelly would have been an enticing candidate for Ohio State in 2011, right?
Right. So like that would have been a possibility. And instead he decided to go to the NFL. And there certainly was a moment where it felt like he was maybe going to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. So I wrote this for Cleveland.com in January of 2013. And let me see. I said, if you could take one college football coach to succeed in the NFL right now, Nick Saban, Brian Kelly, Urban Meyer, I'd take Chip Kelly. When John Gruden was fired by Tampa Bay, he studied football with Kelly. A couple years later, when Meyer was on his year-long break between coaching Florida and Ohio State, he studied Oregon's offense. Bill Belichick adapted part of Kelly's plan for the Patriots this season. Some of the best coaches in football are checking out Chip Kelly. The only thing better than learning from him is hiring him, which is why I think Kelly to the Browns would be a great move for Cleveland. Like, I was all in on what this guy could be. And I think he almost took the Browns job. He took the Eagles job instead. And then he wound up torpedoing himself because he wasn't a very good general manager. And he was so wanted at that point. He had all the power and he got player personnel decision-making and then didn't make very good decisions. Yep. But he's not the first guy to do that. So I wrote that in January of 2013. So 11 years ago. Does that sound crazy to you? Or do you think that was like, is there an alternate timeline where it's like, yeah, and now Chip Kelly has 2 Super Bowls? Like, Chip Kelly's Kyle Shanahan. Although Kyle Shanahan is blood.
Yeah.
I thought the Niners were going to steamroll the Chiefs. I thought the Chiefs, by the way, didn't score a touchdown on 16 straight drives between the AFC Championship game and the Super Bowl. It's like, hey, Patrick Mahomes, it's like great punts, dude. I mean, I know you're an all-time great. Boy, that was a great run of punts and turnovers while your offense did nothing in the second half against the Ravens and the first half against the 49ers. Thank goodness you were playing people who were just more incompetent than you. Like the idea of the bowing down. It's like, oh, you don't want to get a bet against Patrick Mahomes. Like, I was very comfortable betting against Patrick Mahomes when they couldn't score for 75 minutes at the biggest point of the season. Yeah, I would have bet against him then. Maybe if the Niners could block somebody when it mattered or not let a punt hit somebody's foot. Oh, man, the GOAT. He's the GOAT at having a punt hit a guy's foot. My God, I'm not saying he's not great. I thought that Super Bowl, the first 2.5 hours of that Super Bowl, was horrible. And I think there are 10 teams in the NFL who would have beaten either of those teams last night. I was incredible. Like, because again, and I'm getting fights with people on Twitter. It's like, you don't appreciate good defense. It wasn't good defense.
I thought it was pretty good defense.
They were fumbling. Fumble, pick that he just threw to the 49ers, punt off the guy's foot. The longest pass of the game was a 50-yard pass that should have been picked by a safety who spun in a circle 3 times because he didn't know where the ball was.
Mm.
You thought it was good defense? You thought that was like a great football? Did you think they looked like the 2 best teams in the NFL?
No, but that's not the first Super Bowl where that was the case. I thought that the defensive lines in particular were very impressive in that game.
I think like C.J. Stroud or Jordan Love would have had a field day against either of those teams.
Maybe.
GOAT. I think the Chiefs are officially like annoying. Everybody's like, don't doubt the Chiefs. And it's like, I don't know. I think there were a lot of reasons to doubt the Chiefs. And then I blame everybody else in the league for not being able to take advantage. If Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson could have like made plays that mattered when it mattered, okay, nothing would happen. Or really, again, like on the broadcast, they were like, Brock Purdy's not a game manager. I was like, are we sure? Like, there's still like, did you see anything? It's not Joe Montana.
Game manager might be generous, yeah.
Like nobody made the Chiefs pay. I thought it was
that's when the story of their dynasty is like no one makes them pay.
I thought it was like a bad NFL. Like there wasn't a great team this year, and
there was
like
not.
He is an individual great player, of course, but like they're not a great team, and I didn't think it was a great game. I did not think it was a high quality football game.
Were we talking about Chip Kelly?
Chip Kelly would have beaten either of those teams had he gone and stayed in the NFL. He torpedoed himself with the game management thing, but like that Kyle Shanahan comparison of I'm like an offensive genius. I'll hire good defensive coordinators, like I'll build a good staff, but like my offensive acumen is the driving force of my success. I think there's a way to win in the NFL like that if you just allow yourself to have like a John Lynch general manager who takes care of that stuff for you and you're not trying to do it all.
Yeah, no, I think so too. And like you asked me if I think it's crazy that you thought that at the time. Like, no, I don't. I mean, I'm an Eagles fan. I was ecstatic when they hired Chip Kelly because I thought of the same things that you thought. Like with hindsight, like maybe that was a little misguided because the major reason why it didn't work out was the roster management stuff. But there was stuff with the offense too, like oversimplification of things becoming too predictable. Like he won 10 games I think his first 2 years, and they were decent, but he seemed to get figured out rather quickly, and then like his 1 year in San Francisco was a disaster. So there was stuff there that maybe, and it's not that he wasn't the offensive mind that we thought he was. I think it was just that he just tried to port over everything that he did in college the same way, and like it didn't quite work. There had to be a level of sophistication, I think, on top of that for him to be ultimately successful in the NFL, which makes honestly like the NFL's flirtation with him this offseason interesting, because I that to me says that the NFL has like seen that from him in the time since then, to want to have him come back and call plays in the league. But yeah, even with that being said about his offense, I think had he had somebody else, and he did, like he had Howie Roseman there, and then they just like stuck Howie Roseman in a closet and said, you don't get to do anything with the roster anymore. Had there been a different dynamic there with a more competent and empowered general manager to make decisions about the roster, I think Chip Kelly definitely would have had more staying power in the NFL.
He had Nick Foles and Michael Vick as his quarterbacks the first year. Then he had Nick Foles and Mark Sanchez. Then he had Sam Bradford and Mark Sanchez. And that never quite worked. I don't know why was it just a bad fit in San Francisco? Because again, this is all the stuff of like it's not working, the offense is not working. It's like, well, Ryan Day is right next to him, right? I mean, like honestly,
for sure,
right? And then like they had Colin Kaepernick started 11 games for Chip Kelly his 1 year in San Francisco. They went 1-10 in those games. Like that was kind of at a time when Colin Kaepernick had been a successful NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not enough of an expert in his San Francisco tenure to know exactly what happened there, why that unraveled as quickly as it did. I know that was it Jim Tom Sula who was a coach before him. Like they were making a whole lot of good decisions out there at the time. Chip Kelly was the head coach of the Niners. So I know more about what happened with the Eagles, but were
you mad at Chip Kelly by the time he left Philly? Were you like, get this guy out of here?
He traded away all their good players. He traded LaShawn McCoy for Kiko Alonso.
Yeah, right. GM Chip Kelly. So the bottom line that I was like, why are you talking about this? I think that there are a multitude of ways in which Chip Kelly at age 60 could have had a far more successful career than he had. From when he left, he was 49 turning 50. Watch out for 50-year-olds who think they know everything. Like what his last decade has been with the Eagles, the Niners, and then UCLA, I think is about as bad as it could have gone. And now the result is here. And it's not horrible. He didn't go to UCLA and go 2-10 every year. Like they had some good years. They were competitive. That is not a program that's been at the highest level, before him. So, but even that, like, and again, the Eagles wasn't very good. It was like it was 10-6, 10-6. And then he got fired in year 3 after he went 10-6 and 10-6 in the first 2 years. He didn't go 1-15. But even that, I do think it's about as bad as it could have been. And the result is Ohio State is getting a 60-year-old guy who a decade ago was as hot as anybody at any level of football. The choices he made did not put him in the best position to succeed. And then again, he only has himself to blame for a lot of it. But that's who you're getting. So like that's my point at Ohio State. I think there's a chance that he is a highly successful college coach somewhere else right now if he never left. I think there are ways where he's a highly successful NFL coach right now if it had gone a little different. Once he got to UCLA, like I don't know that was ever going to work out. Maybe if he had gone somewhere else, a different circumstance there. But I think Ohio State is getting a guy who could be absolutely ungettable, has within him the talent and the acumen that it's like, how did you get this guy's not available? It's like, hey, should the Eagles get Kyle Shanahan to be the offensive coordinator? It's like, no, he's not coming to do that. Should they get Lincoln Riley to be their offensive coordinator? It's like, no, he's too successful. Mm-hmm. I think Chip Kelly could be that right now in a different timeline.
No, I think so too, but I don't know that you're saying that, and I certainly wouldn't say that as a means of like making this higher, less impactful than I think we believe it's going to be. It's just kind of odd the way things play out, like the decisions you make along the way, how they kind of alter the trajectory of your career. But I actually think, like as you said, like they didn't go 2-10 at UCLA. Like he was he 8-4, 9-5, 8-4 at his last 3 years, I think, or UCLA, something like that. It was like 8-9 win total there the last 3 years. And like I think
he was so his UCLA records overall 3-9, 4-8, 3-4 in the COVID year, then 8-4, 9-4, 8-5.
Yeah, so 8-9 win totals the last 3 years. Which, like, maybe UCLA has a higher ceiling than that, but it's not like you bottomed out there either. And like I think what we saw from that offense in 2022 is confirmation that like Chip Kelly still has it. You know, like his ideas still work. He's still got his fastball. However you want to couch that. It's weird that what's gotten him to this point that he's not the kind of coach that you're talking about. He's not a Kyle Shanahan. He's not a, I don't know. I want to say Nick Saban. What's a level below that? Like Lincoln Riley, I guess, is a good example of that. Like certainly he could have been either of those two coaches. I think, and the fact that he's not that at age 60 probably eats at him. I would assume on a daily basis because he's a highly successful coach, and I'm sure he's got an ego and he knows how smart and innovative he is and has been in college football. But I still think Ohio State's getting those traits in its offensive coordinator. Like maybe it turns out that Chip Kelly is whatever combination he has of things that work for him at Oregon weren't right for the NFL, and maybe he just didn't have the same fire to kind of get UCLA back to the same place. But I don't think as an offensive coordinator, play caller, that much has changed about him. I still think he's a guy that can get a bad offense, take tremendous leaps forward, or in Ohio State's case, get a really good offense to become elite kind of once again.
No, to me, it raises what Ohio State is getting. That like this is a guy who could have been that, and he's certainly not blameless. I'm not saying like, oh, poor Chip Kelly.
No,
oh, he got fired in Philly. Like again, but that idea, I think that's in him. And then if you're 60 and you think to yourself, I could have been, was one of the most important football minds in this era, as we stated earlier. B, I think I could have been one of the great head coaches in football history at either level. I think I had that in me. C, it didn't work out. D, now I'm at UCLA. I'm the head coach of the 39th best program in college football. And now I have to go talk to boosters to have them contribute to our NIL so we can get good players. Are you kidding me? So that we can try to win 10 games next year instead of 9 and barely miss the 12-team playoff? Like, what am I doing? So I understand why, with what he was and what he could have been, why in this era, to me, he's the perfect guy to burn out as a head coach at that level program in this era. He is absolutely the poster child for that. I think Jeff Hafley in some ways is the poster child the other way. Jeff Hafley at Boston College thought he was still a guy on the way up, but it's like we don't have the resources to compete in the ACC with Florida State and Miami and Clemson, and I'm going to bang my head against a wall. I'm trying to do something that matters, and like I'm trying to win 7 games at Boston College while begging for money. And I still want to maximize what I can be. So for a guy on the way up, Jeff Hafley's the poster child, but it doesn't mean nobody wants that job. For guys who are kind of already have been at their peak and are maybe like on the back 9 of their career, Chip Kelly's the poster child for, what do you want to do, man? I don't know. Can I just call plays and try to win a national title? Okay. Yeah. With my friend. So I get why UCLA's bad, but I think he, at this point in this era, was absolutely not the guy for the UCLA job.
Clearly. Yes.
And I think he's absolutely the guy for this job.
I agree.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead. No, I think we're going to ask the same thing. So go ahead.
Would you rather have Bill O'Brien or Chip Kelly?
Chip Kelly.
I was fine. And can I say, as the don't hire your friends and family, bang the table guy, I appreciate Ryan Day not doing that as his first instinct.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know. It's like, do you know Bill O'Brien? Are you friends with him? I don't think he's friends with him, but he thought he was an accomplished, high-level candidate for the job. Great. I was totally on board with the Bill O'Brien hire. And then when you kind of, you put in a lot of work to that, and 3 weeks later, stuff happens. I understand why Bill O'Brien took it, but you kind of got the short end of the stick there. Yep. And then your very qualified friend is available. I understand going to that. So like, I agree with how all of this worked out, but I certainly don't think like Chip Kelly is a step down from Bill O'Brien.
No, I don't think so either. There are things on Bill O'Brien's resume i.e., working with Tom Brady, that Chip Kelly does not have. Bill O'Brien has a Heisman Trophy college quarterback on his resume as well. Chip Kelly doesn't have that. But Chip Kelly has good quarterback play. He has, some NFL success, and he is stronger in some areas than Bill O'Brien, including like run game creativity and the kind of stuff we were talking about earlier. So like, it's two different ways, I guess, of being a good hire.
Yeah.
But I actually think, as I said earlier, like in terms of what I really believe Ohio State needs, Chip Kelly, I think, is slightly better at the moment.
And either of them are taking the spot that was previously filled by Corey Dennis. It blows your mind.
Yeah.
How is this possible? And again, it's going to be really interesting when Ohio State's assistant coach salary pool is finalized and comes out. Because, bro, they are handing out the dough for assistants.
Do you think Chip's going to make $3 million?
That's what would be by far the highest paid coordinator in college football.
Right? Jim Knowles is going to be over 2. I think wasn't there a $3 million college football assistant recently, like at LSU or something like that?
Oh, LSU doesn't count. That's Louisiana money. It's not worth as much. Cajun Bucks.
Garrett Riley. He's just over 2.
Garrett Riley, offensive coordinator at Clemson, that they stole away from TCU to also have it not go great.
Yeah, here's
sorry, looking at the list.
I'm looking at the list. This is on 247.
Okay.
From this past November. Number 1 highest paid assistant is Garrett Riley at just north of $2 million.
Okay.
Ryan Grubb was just over $2 million last year. Jim Knowles was just under $2 million last year, but with incentives, I think got over that, and he'll be over
Ryan
that.
Grubb, Washington offensive coordinator, who now is the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator.
Seahawks, yeah. So Knowles will be over 2. And I kind of think Chip Kelly's going to make more than Jim Knowles. What do you think of that?
To get a guy to leave a head coaching job, a Power 5 Big Ten head coaching job, let's play name that contract. I'll guess that it's a 3-year deal for 2.4 per year.
Yeah, that's probably right. I might go because you have to factor in I think the buyout was $1.5 million, which again, like, is a lot of money, but in terms of coaching contracts and buyouts, to get a head coach to leave his job is actually like pennies. 3 years. Maybe I'd say like 2.5 per, but we're all kind of on the same page. Yeah.
I'm also moving from LA to Columbus, cost of living.
That's true.
Chipkin. Columbus, Ohio, the Manchester of the Midwest, what they say.
That's what I've always called it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. When we come back, we will do some Whatcha Watching. I already complained about the Super Bowl, so I have to think about something else.
I know. It's like, are we just transitioning into that already? Yeah.
Whatcha Watching, what you eating, what you thinking next on Kings of Columbus. So we will have a second Kings of Columbus this week. It's something I did last year that I want to do again this year on Valentine's Day, which is what you love about being an Ohio State football fan. I call it anti-rants. And so I will put that out to our tech subscribers. You can get it now if you want to be able to send in a story. It's going to be me reading a lot of people's stories. I'll do a survey too about the great things about being a fan, what it does for you and family, what it does for you and your friends, what it does for you and your enjoyment of life and your mental health and your connection to people and something to look forward to. And it's part of your identity and all the wonderful, it's easy to complain. But I really hope that sports help people live better lives. And so we want to celebrate that on the Wednesday show. We will be doing that. But we have the second Kings of Columbus this week. So again, if you want to be a tech subscriber, 614-662-4509. You can send a text to that number. You get back a link to sign up, and you can do a free trial for 2 weeks. I think I have another one besides the Super Bowl. So, but what are you watching, Landis?
My thing was also about the Super Bowl. I think my watching and thinking are both about the Super Bowl. And I guess both would apply. One, here's what I wanted to touch on what you just mentioned, which is people need to be able to appreciate defense when they watch football games.
Oh, so you're calling me out?
Yeah, well, you and a lot of other people. Why do we need to equate good football with points? I don't think we need to. And I don't disagree with a lot of your points, but I'm not saying it was an excellent defensive game. There were some breakdowns that certainly teams didn't pay for, but my point is mostly about watching the defensive lines of both teams. It's if you think the game's not good because not enough points are being scored, or it's kind of clunky and punts are going off a guy's feet, watch Chase Young and Nick Bosa and Randy Gregory, man, or watch like Chris Jones on the Chiefs defensive line, or the guy with the giant biceps on the Chiefs defensive line, it was number 69, whose name is escaping me at the moment. Like that guy played his butt off. Like I thought there was an incredible defensive line play in that game. So like while I was scrolling through Twitter and watching everyone kind of complaining about how the game was boring or not exciting, and like certainly it wasn't the most exciting football game I've ever watched, I thought that the quality defensive line play more than made up for the lack of points and offensive fireworks that people were hoping for. And so I guess that will qualify as my thinking, that I want to kind of implore people to try to watch football a little differently when like the most obvious thing that can make a game exciting is not necessarily happening for you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I just didn't think like what was the I agree that that we all should be able to appreciate good defensive football and that lots of points does not equal good football. But even like and I didn't like rewatch the play, but the third down play in overtime on the Niners opening drive, the Niners first only drive, right? That
Mm-hmm.
where Purdy had to get rid of it early.
Was that when they blitzed Trent McDuffie? Was it
No,
that play?
that was a different McDuffie blitz, but it was. I mean, this was like down in the red zone, right, where Eddie overthrew
Oh,
Jennings
right.
in the end
Yeah.
zone, and I
Yeah.
think Jones came in unblocked. Is that right on that play? But I like there was a guy in Purdy's face right away, but it felt like it was because there was a breakdown on the offensive line that like they got mixed up on like who was supposed to be blocking who. It didn't feel to me like a great individual defensive play, and I thought that was emblematic of like, okay, I don't know, but
Mhm.
it's like, are we seeing that much great defensive play? Hey, that was a good McDuffie blitz, and he backpedaled right before the snap and then blitzed and then that tipped the ball on third down. I get that. Or are we seeing like breakdowns or like guys who actually just are not at the top of their game that like Purdy's not one of the best 10 quarterbacks or the Niners offensive line was not that great or they didn't throw to George Kittle had like 4 receiving yards the whole game and like I just think about like the individual, like where was the individual excellence that I know Nick Bosa, had rush integrity and stayed in his rush lane and did let Patrick Mahomes get outside. But it's like
Appreciate rush integrity, man. That's what we're watching the game for.
Super Bowl 58 is absolutely the rush integrity Super Bowl. It's the nipple Super Bowl and the rush integrity Super Bowl.
No, I get that. Like I'm not trying to say that like that was the greatest game ever if you can change your perspective because I don't think that it was. But I thought Trent McDuffie played a great game. I thought Fred Warner played a great game. I thought Nick Bosa played a great game. I thought Chris Jones played a great game. And like so like that's the kind of stuff that I'm like hanging on to when I get get a little annoyed by this game sucked talk. Like I don't think the game sucked. It wasn't the best Super Bowl I've ever seen, but I don't know that it sucked. I think I would push back on that pretty hard because I thought there were things to appreciate, particularly on both defenses in that game that pushed me beyond this game sucked.
It's always like a big deal to have the slot right after the Super Bowl, right, for the TV show. And
Yeah.
the TV show is the This Is Us guy who's like a bounty hunter or something now. I don't know. Right.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I saw the previews for it, but I didn't watch
I
it.
had it on long enough that he took his shirt off like 11 minutes in. And
Oh, I'm
it
surprised
was,
it didn't happen earlier than that.
yeah. But it was just like between Usher and that guy who acts like a cardboard cutout. That
Yeah.
guy he is so wooden. He like wood is offended to be compared to that guy. But it was like he took his shirt off in the first 11 minutes. And I was like, this is a lot of male nipples on my
Yeah.
TV, which I'm not saying is good or bad, but to me, so that's what this night is about. That and rush integrity.
Yeah.
So I have had that fight before. I just didn't think this was like a prime example of it. I thought it was more about like failures of people, as much as again that Mahomes 50-yard pass was in the air forever, and there were 2 guys there, and the guy literally had no. It's like they lost the ball in the sun, kind of situation from that
Yeah.
safety. I was like, terrible. Well, it wasn't like, and it wasn't a great Patrick Mahomes play. And it was a terrible play by the defense, but it wound up being the longest play of the game. So anyway, so I guess since I already complained about it, my Whatcha Watching is My wife and I were watching the new Fargo that I think we had talked about, and Ari said I should watch the new Fargo, so I'm watching it. But then it was too much violence, so she didn't want to watch it anymore, so I'm watching it by myself. But I am always like, I don't want to watch shows or movies where bad things happen to people that are like very relatable and could
Oh
actually
yeah.
happen to other people. Like, what's this movie about? A regular person gets a terrible disease. I'm like, why is that a movie? Because that happens.
Yeah.
I don't need to be reminded that good people get terrible diseases for no reason out of nowhere. Let's make a 2-hour movie about it. What is entertaining about that? So, but like, hey, some guy like snuck in your house dressed as a Halloween character and shot somebody. It's like, well, I don't actually think that's going to happen to me. So I can be entertained by that. So I'm always confused by people who are like, I don't want any like violence in my entertainment, but I do want everyday diseases in my entertainment.
Yeah.
Why?
I'm
I don't
with
want
you.
that.
Yeah. I want to watch like John Wick inexplicably fight off 20 people at the same time, because that wouldn't happen in real life. But yeah, I don't want to
Yeah.
watch personal tragedy befall
Yeah.
befall everyday people.
Yeah. Like it'd be like, yeah, like John Wick is chasing the bad guy. And it's like, oh, he's about to shoot the bad guy. And it's like, no, wait, what happened to the bad guy? It's like, actually, he got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. The bad guy has to change his diet and check his blood sugar regularly. Like, I want to watch that. I don't want to watch John Wick shoot the guy, though, and have the guy like fly backwards in slow motion. What are you eating?
Can I say my watching is a simple point,
Oh,
and it's
so
also
your Super Bowl was your thinking. You
that was
watched
my
the Super
thinking.
Bowl that made you think that I was wrong for complaining. Yes.
Yes, but as I watched it too, I kept muttering to myself, I think louder and louder throughout the game, "Shut the hell up, Tony Romo."
Oh,
Yeah,
snap.
he sucks, man. He's terrible. I used to
So,
think he was good. Like I was on the same train as everybody else when he first started. Like, oh, this is different perspective. Like he's kind of younger. He's doing some stuff that people don't do. And then he thought he became like God's gift to broadcasting and does not shut up. And he needs to shut up because he ruins the most important moments of games by incessantly talking.
somebody pointed this out, and ever since it was pointed out to me, I think I've really felt it. Like he and Jim Nantz are not connected. It's very just like it feels like
Yeah.
Jim Nantz is constantly setting something up, and then Tony Romo talks about something else.
Yeah.
And they even did yeah, it feels it's not smooth and connected. It doesn't feel like a conversation. Like I think the best announcing
Mhm.
duos, it just feels like it's like a podcast. Two people having a conversation while a game is happening. And it doesn't feel like Nance and Romo are conversing.
Yeah. And I think we also need fewer quarterbacks in that role too. Like I understand why they mostly go to quarterbacks, but like I feel like Romo just doesn't want to criticize quarterbacks. Like
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes throws a ball behind a receiver and it's not his fault. Patrick
Right.
Mahomes pitches a ball to the shoulder of Isaiah Pacheco and the ball gets fumbled, but that's Pacheco's fault. It's not Patrick Mahomes' fault.
Yeah.
And he did the same thing with Brock Purdy too, like talking about Brock Purdy's on a game manager. And I think like Tony Romo learned the word spatial awareness that week because he said it so often.
Yeah.
Just like it's okay. I know you played the position, but like you're allowed to criticize them too. And I actually like I don't love what it's Fox, right, is doing to Greg Olson with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
But there was a clip of Tom Brady like earlier in the week, like talking about modern quarterback play that like made me excited that Tom Brady might actually analyze quarterbacks honestly when he's in the broadcast booth. Because I don't think Tony Romo does. I think Tony Romo is now just like trying to guess plays and like create viral social media moments with the dumb things that he says. And I wish he would just stop talking.
Can we clip that out and put it on social?
Yeah, please turn that into a viral social media clip.
So what is your eating about what you ate during the Super Bowl, or is it about something else?
So I had two things. One, yes, I think I discovered a new favorite buffalo wing flavor or chicken wing flavor, which is buffalo parmesan. It's like buffalo sauce with a little sprinkle of Parmesan cheese on there.
Nice.
Which I've never had before. That was quite good. But I'll gloss over that because I tried during the week the new Reese's cup with caramel in it. And it was like
pumping that up on the commercials.
Yeah, and I was really excited about it because I'm a red-blooded American who loves himself a Reese's cup, and I also love caramel. Not good. I didn't like it. It was too sweet. It was too much. The flavors together didn't work for me, which was kind of like I think like now that I've tried it makes sense, and maybe I should have expected that going into it. It was also kind of a bummer because I was excited about combining the two things, and it just was not a good combination.
Caramel and peanut butter do not go together. They are both alternate flavors with chocolate, but you've got to pick.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane to me. You were hoodwinked by the commercial.
Well, Jason Kelsey was in it too, which like that was it got they were marketing directly to me.
Was he like rubbing caramel on his bare chest or what?
No, not quite.
I think it sounds horrible. You've got to choose. That is not a both. That is an either situation. And of course it's too sweet, but I don't even think the flavor profiles match up. I think even like when Snickers does like a peanut butter Snickers, I think they replace the caramel with peanut butter. They don't do both, do they? Do they?
I think you're right. Both. Yeah, I think you're right. And like the texture of it's kind of weird too. Like it's because the peanut butter in the Reese's cup is like kind of granular still. And then you get like this smooth caramel on top of it, and it's just like this doesn't like what do they call that? The umami? Is it the mouth the mouth feel of it? Yeah, it's not great.
Good. Okay, I'm not even gonna try it then.
Yeah,
because I much prefer peanut butter, but I don't want my peanut butter messed with. I like I like many versions of the Reese's cup, but I would never do that. Okay, so that's a good eating. So I'll go to my thinking, which is I'd like to divide people. I like to be divisive. I like to group people together. And so I think this is a good way to define people. Do you agree with this? Whether you are a game person or a puzzle person, like a board game person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I suppose there are some people who could be both. If you're neither, I don't like that would be sad. But are you a puzzle person or a game person?
Game. Absolutely.
So like I was at my sister's over the weekend, and so we had the whole family there. And so we were, right. That's when a lot of those come up when you have a big family gathering. Mm-hmm. So we want to make a puzzle. My wife's side of the family wants to do a puzzle. My side of the family wants to play games. My wife is much more a puzzle person, and I am absolutely a game person because I think puzzles feel like homework and games are competition.
Yep.
But she thinks that like puzzles are, I think, like a community work together kind of thing, and games just create opportunities to get mad at each other for no reason when you're trying to have family fun. Which I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point. Get mad.
Yeah.
So, but I like as we build things up, I'm trying to think about like surveys, like on as we eventually expand like our KOTN universe and things that are relatable and whatever. And it's like I think game person, puzzle person is a good one, to say. And I think so. Ask the people that you're watching this, you're listening to this. Ask the people that think to yourself, which one am I? Because I even think if you like both, you probably have a lean, right? Hey, you want to play a game or do a puzzle? Probably have a lean. I don't know that you're 50-50.
Yeah, no, I don't. I want nothing to do with a puzzle, but the people that I've known who have been in the both definitely have a lean.
Yeah. So I'm not saying puzzle people are wrong, but it's math homework. They're tricking you. It's math homework.
Do you like what? Like the idea of like communal puzzle building is entertainment. Like I don't really want anything to do with that. And I couldn't tell you the last time I put together a puzzle, but are you also anti like solitary puzzle making as like a means of kind of like disconnecting and finding some moments of zen?
Yeah, I want nothing to do with the jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah, me
0%. Nothing to do with it. Because then you gotta have a spot for it, and if you don't finish it right away, then it's like now you're trying to.
What do you do when you're done?
Puzzle on the table. Have a sense of accomplishment.
I guess, but then you just kind of like, do you just take it apart and put it in a box and never look at it again? Or like,
Do you raise your arms and say, I won? I mean, I don't want to. I mean, there are puzzle people watching and listening to this. So we just don't have that enzyme. We don't have the puzzle enzyme. Maybe we could take a pill and then we would like puzzles. But you and I
I'd
are
rather
not
play
there.
Trivial Pursuit. Yeah,
exactly. Because there's a winner. It's a winner. Okay, that'll do it for this version of What You Watching, What You Eating, What You Thinking on Kings of Columbus. We will have another Kings of Columbus this week. We have 2 Kings of the North planned for this week. I would point you toward the Tuesday Kings of the North, where I think we will talk about the Bill O'Brien and Chip Kelly situations a little bit more, Bill, because we're going to go through the coaching carousel in the North. There are 6 new head coaches in our 26 Northern teams this year. And that means, of course, those new head coaches have new coordinators, but there's a lot of other coordinator movement. There is double-digit coordinator movement. You think about that. We only claimed 26 Northern teams. There's double-digit new coordinators on both sides of the ball. Now, some of them are part of the new head coaches, but obviously there are a lot beyond that. It's just a lot of reshuffling about how big-time programs in the North are going about their business.
Yeah, there's a few, the ones that aren't associated with head coaching changes, and I suppose this is obvious, but they're like, coaches are like kind of trying to save their butts with a change on either side of the ball. So it is really interesting. And even like if you're an Ohio State fan, like some of it impacts you, or at least impacts what you'll see on Ohio State's schedule this year.
Yeah. So we have big plans on Kings of the North. Make sure you're watching and listening to everything we're putting out here at the podcast. We want to thank our producer, Mike Yorostowski, for making us look good and sound good. For now, he is Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of Columbus.